The Silent Reckoning. Serafina Thorne's quest for justice. Serafina Thorne was never driven by vengeance. Her goal was clear: institutional reform, measurable, lasting change. What began as a quiet roadside confrontation quickly spiraled into something far grander. The Department of Justice's preliminary review had escalated into a full-scale investigation, leaving the Blackwood Pass Police Department facing a stark choice: comply with federal consent decree or brace for sweeping litigation. Either outcome would alter the county forever, and it all started not with shouting, but with silence. As hearings began and evidence mounted, one final, unexpected ripple reached Serafina's desk. This wasn't official. It arrived in a plain white envelope, her name written in careful, uncertain handwriting. Few people knew her true identity or temporary address, making its arrival even more curious. She opened it slowly. "Ms. Thorne, I don't expect forgiveness, but I've been watching the hearings. I didn't know who you were. That's not an excuse. I don't know what change looks like yet, but I want to learn." Brock Stone. She stared at the note in silence, not in shock or anger, but deep reflection. In her experience, real accountability almost never arrived unannounced. Certainly not from the very people at the center of systemic abuse. She didn't reply. Not right away. The DOJ review widened. Officers began stepping forward, not in rebellion, but in reluctant recognition. A rookie cop spoke anonymously about being punished for challenging Stone's methods. A dispatcher risked his job to leak codes unofficially used to mark profile calls. These weren't grand gestures. They were cracks forming in a long, unyielding wall. And Serafina knew cracks let light in. Weeks passed. Then, one cool morning, she left a cafe outside town and saw Stone through the window. No uniform, no badge, just a man sitting alone. When he finally met her eyes, he stood up but didn't move closer, just nodded. Quietly, she walked in anyway. She sat across from him. He spoke first. "I used to think I knew what the job meant. Protect, serve," he murmured. "But I only protected people who looked like me. You being silent, that was louder than anything else. It told me I was in control." Serafina met his gaze, calm and unblinking. "You made the call, didn't you?" he asked. She shook her head. "No, I didn't need to. The system you thought would shield you finally turned on itself. Not because of me, because of your choices." He nodded slowly, absorbing the words like a bruise spreading inward. Serafina declined to press personal charges. The DOJ's disciplinary actions were already underway. Instead, she proposed something else: a community reform initiative. Sessions led not by lawyers, but by former officers, survivors, and investigators. Not for comfort, for accountability. She didn't invite Stone. He asked to join. Months later, Blackwood Pass hosted its first community police dialogue forum. At the front stood Stone, no rank, no title, sharing a halting confession. How power felt invisible when it belonged to you, and crushing when turned against you. He didn't ask for redemption, just a chance to show he had begun to see. That night, Serafina returned to her desk. Instead of filing a report, she pinned a letter not to Brock, but to a young woman she had once interviewed, a victim who had said bitterly, "They never change." Serafina had responded with legal ease then, but now she wrote, "They don't all change, but one does, then another. Not fast, not loud, but real. And sometimes we get to be the reason they start to look in the mirror." She never sought the spotlight. She left Blackwood Pass quietly, her mission complete, but her presence lingered in revised city budgets, in nervous reform proposals debated by the town council, and the quiet shifts among officers now aware they were being watched not just by the public, but by history. Back at DOJ headquarters in Fort Lincoln, Serafina returned to her work. No fanfare, no cameras, just a new case file, a new town, a new pattern. That traffic stop, the one that might have ended in trauma or silence, had instead sparked a reckoning. It never made national news, but it didn't need to. Justice didn't shout that day. It watched, it waited, and when it moved everything. Undercover, the unmasking of Dr. Vance. The electric hum of her sedan blended with a whisper of pines as dusk settled over Blackwood Pass. Serafina Thorne drove in silence, her midnight blue blouse crisp, her grip steady. This wasn't a detour. It was a deliberate shift from courtroom to back road, from headlines to shadows. The hum of power lived beneath her stillness. She wasn't running. She wasn't lost. She was watching as a patrol car emerged from a tree lean like a predator. Headlights off, angled with purpose. An officer stood beside it, sunglasses catching the last light. The badge read, Officer Brock Stone. Arms crossed, silent. Dangerous. Sarah rolled her window down an inch. No smile, no small talk. Out now. Her voice didn't tremble. On what grounds, officer? I said, out. He demanded, soft but sharp. Am I being detained? That was the trigger. Stone yanked open the door and dragged her out, slamming her to the gravel. Her palms scraped the earth, eyes catching the reflection of cruiser tires in a puddle. A semi passed, slowing, then speeding away. You're making a grave error, she warned quietly. Stone radioed in a false report. Female suspect uncooperative, detained for questioning. And then the shift. A voice, cold and unfamiliar, cut across the channel. Not local dispatch, not state patrol. Officer Stone, cease and desist. Release the individual immediately. Do not proceed. He froze. She didn't. Back at the station, Sarah sat in silence inside the holding cell. Wrists aching, jaw set. She didn't pace. Didn't shout. She waited. Waiting was what she did best, because she wasn't just a civilian. She was a deep-covered DOJ agent assigned to uncover systemic bias and unlawful policing patterns in small-town America. Blackwood Pass had been flagged for months. The numbers were all there: traffic stops, missing reports, dismissed complaints. But data wasn't enough. The DOJ needed a thread to pull, and Officer Stone had just yanked it. For 3 months, Sarah had lived under an alias, Dr. Eleanor Vance, attending town meetings, blending in and listening. She cataloged misconduct, traced badge numbers, tracked the silence left behind by scared citizens. Stone's name surfaced repeatedly. Proactive, efficient, always off the record. She had the files, the videos, the whispers. But what she hadn't expected was to become part of the data herself. Her laptop back at the cottage still glowed. The last entry time-stamped hours earlier. Pattern escalation begins with women of color. Verbal command precedes unlawful force. She hadn't written what happened next because it had happened to her. 1,000 miles away, her status pinged red inside the DOJ's network. An alert went out. Her superior, Deputy Director Julian Croft, took one look and made the call himself. At Blackwood Pass PD, Chief Gideon Thorne didn't argue. He handed Stone the phone with a grim nod. You are to release the individual in holding cell 2 immediately, said the voice on the line. Do not engage. This is a direct federal order. What? Stone blinked, confused. You'll receive your suspension notice within the hour. He returned her badge and firearm to the desk. The hallway was quiet when Serafina emerged, bruised but upright. Eyes followed her, but no one met her gaze. She stepped into an unmarked sedan without a word. Inside, Croft simply nodded. We reviewed the footage. Stone is off duty. Full oversight is being authorized. Sarah didn't respond. She stared out the window, watching the quiet town roll by. The diner where she once smiled at strangers. The council building where new crowd control gear was approved without discussion. Now, they receive a letter with her real name at the bottom. Back at the station, murmurs grew louder. No sirens, no lawsuits. Just one woman walking out and everything shifting behind her. A week later, her report became more than theory. Now it included her own experience. Exhibit A. Inside DOJ headquarters, Serafina sat before a panel. She slid a digital file across the table. Its title, Blackwood Pass PD Pattern in Practice. Confidential summary. Body cams deactivated at key moments. Complaints erased. Racial disparities in stops and charges. Names repeated again and again. Stone's was only the first. But it was no longer just about him. It was about the system, And Seraphina Thorne had brought the full weight of the federal government to bear, not with a shout, but with the unyielding force of truth and silent determination.